The scene in Doha unfolds against the backdrop of one of the Middle East's most enduring and fragile fault lines. As delegations, policymakers and analysts gather for the Doha Forum, it is Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, who captures the room's attention with a warning that resonates far beyond the hall. Syria has always insisted on respecting the 1974 disengagement agreement. This agreement has been in force for over 50 years. It is therefore, in one way or another, a successful agreement. Consequently, any questioning of this agreement, despite the international consensus and that of the Security Council and the pursuit of other agreements, such as the creation of a demilitarized zone, would put us in a grave and dangerous position. We do not know the consequences. Success or failure is uncertain. His message is direct, unusual in its frankness, and unmistakably shaped by the pressures of a turbulent region. Israel's insistence on a demilitarized zone in southern Syria, he says, is pushing his country into a grave and dangerous position. The remark is not a routine diplomatic comment. It reflects a point of tension that has been quietly building for months, as Washington, Jerusalem and several Gulf capitals discuss the future of Syria's southern front, an area where geopolitical lines intersect with security fears, proxy networks, and the remnants of more than a decade of conflict. To understand why al-Sharaa views the proposal as a threat, one must revisit the agreement at the heart of his argument, the 1974 disengagement accord between Syria and Israel. When al-Sharaa speaks, he invokes the accord as a pillar of regional stability, describing it as a framework that has endured for over half a century. Syria has always insisted on respecting the 1974 disengagement agreement. This agreement has been in force for over 50 years. It is therefore, in one way or another, a successful agreement, he says, delivering the line with the tone of someone who believes that history, not politics, should settle the debate. The accord, established after the Yom Kippur War, set clear limits on force deployments along the Golan Heights. Through war, civil conflict and shifting alliances, it remained one of the few mechanisms both sides adhered to, even if reluctantly. For Syria, the agreement represented not only a set of military boundaries, but a strategic equilibrium preserved through decades of mistrust. It limited Israeli military movement near Syrian territory while preventing heavy Syrian deployments in areas adjacent to the occupied Golan. Even during the peak of Syria's civil war, when state institutions fractured and militias filled the vacuum, the 1974 arrangement never fully collapsed. International observers, including UNDOF, continued monitoring buffer zones, even when the violence around them surged. That longevity, al-Sharaa argues, should not be dismissed lightly. His warning that reopening the agreement puts Syria in danger speaks to the fear that once the door to renegotiation opens, new demands will follow, demands that could reshape the regional map. Consequently, he states, any questioning of this agreement, despite the international consensus and that of the Security Council and the pursuit of other agreements, such as the creation of a demilitarized zone, would put us in a grave and dangerous position. Here, the sense of uncertainty is central. When al-Sharaa adds, we do not know the consequences. Success or failure is uncertain. He is not simply arguing from principle. He is pointing to the unpredictable chain reactions that any new agreement might set off. For Damascus, a demilitarized southern zone does not merely reduce troop presence, it shifts the balance of control, reduces leverage in negotiations, and signals to regional actors that Syria may be forced into accepting arrangements that weaken its sovereignty. In the broader regional landscape, Israeli officials have long argued that demilitarization is essential to preventing Iranian-aligned militias from entrenching themselves near Israeli borders. Since the onset of Syria's civil war, Iran-backed groups, including Hezbollah, have expanded their footprint in Syrian territory, creating what Israel sees as an intolerable strategic threat. For Israel, any post-war settlement must ensure that these forces cannot operate within striking distance of the Golan. Demilitarization, in their view, is not aimed at the Syrian state alone. It is designed to prevent Iranian influence from hardening into a permanent military presence. Yet for Syria, the distinction between demilitarizing against Iran and demilitarizing Syria itself is blurred. The interim government in Damascus faces the difficult task of asserting sovereignty while maintaining essential alliances. As a result, al-Sharaa's comments underscore a sensitivity that has defined Syrian diplomacy for decades. Any arrangement perceived as restricting Syria's rights within its own territory must be resisted, regardless of the assurances offered. His remarks in Doha also come at a time when Syria is attempting to re-enter the regional diplomatic fold after years of isolation. Several Arab states, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have engaged in cautious dialogue with the Syrian interim government, even as differences remain over reconstruction, humanitarian access and political reform. In this context, al-Sharaa's statement serves multiple audiences. It signals to Israel and its allies that Syria will not accept unilateral security dictates. It signals to Arab states that Syria still positions itself as a defender of regional sovereignty. And it signals internally to supporters, to skeptics and to the broader Syrian public that the interim government views itself as responsible for protecting the country's territorial integrity. Behind the podium, the tension in al-Sharaa's voice is not just rhetorical. It reflects a reality in which southern Syria remains one of the most contested and militarily volatile areas in the Middle East. The region is home to remnants of armed groups, local militias aligned with multiple external actors, and security units loyal to Damascus. Layered onto that are Israeli concerns over weapons transfers to Hezbollah, fears of cross-border drone operations, and the possibility of spillover from Gaza, Lebanon, or the Red Sea. It is this convergence of risks that makes any change to the existing arrangement potentially destabilizing. For many in the audience, al-Sharaa's argument raises difficult questions about what stability looks like in a region where the traditional borders between state and non-state forces remain blurred. If Israel insists that Lebanon must restrain Hezbollah and Syria must prevent Iranian groups from approaching its borders, then what leverage does Syria actually have? How can it guarantee the security of territory that remains fractured by years of conflict? And how much control does the interim government truly exert over southern regions where multiple actors, including tribal forces and Iranian-aligned units, operate in complex coordination? These are questions Western governments have also grappled with. US policymakers have increasingly linked Syria's southern file to broader regional efforts to contain Iran. In recent months, Washington has explored diplomatic channels with Arab partners to pressure Damascus into curbing militia activities. At the same time, US officials recognize that stripping Syria of defensive capability in the south may weaken Damascus in ways that produce further instability, not less. This is the paradox al-Sharaa is highlighting, that an arrangement presented as a path to stability may, in Syria's calculation, produce precisely the opposite outcome. A demilitarized zone could encourage external actors to test new boundaries, empower non-state militias by reducing the formal army's presence, or create opportunities for opportunistic attacks that Damascus can no longer deter. In a country where borders have been violated repeatedly since 2011, unpredictability carries high stakes. Beyond security concerns, the interim president's statement reveals a deep mistrust of international guarantees. After years of war, shifting alliances, and unfulfilled promises, Syria's leadership views diplomatic proposals through the prism of past disappointments. Any new agreement, especially one involving Israel, raises fears of political concessions without reciprocal benefits. The 1974 agreement, despite its limitations, is seen as predictable, legally anchored, and internationally recognized. Replacing it with an undefined, demilitarized framework is viewed as gambling with national security at a time when Syrian institutions are stretched thin. Al-Sharaa's words also reflect an attempt to reshape the narrative around Syrian sovereignty. While Israel insists that its demands are rooted in legitimate security concerns, Syria frames demilitarization as a violation of its rights and an erosion of its ability to protect itself. This narrative resonates across much of the Arab world, where skepticism about Israeli security proposals runs deep, especially when those proposals involve altering the military balance of neighboring states. The speech in Doha therefore becomes more than an isolated comment. It is part of a wider diplomatic effort to push back against pressure that Damascus sees as undefinable and open-ended. As al-Sharaa emphasizes uncertainty, he is positioning Syria as a stakeholder that must be consulted rather than sidelined. He is also sending a message to the international community that stability in southern Syria requires reinforcing, not rewriting, the agreements that have kept tensions contained for decades. At the same time, Israel is unlikely to soften its demands. The Gaza conflict has heightened Israeli fears of coordinated fronts stretching from Lebanon to Syria to the occupied West Bank. Israeli officials argue that without strict demilitarization, Iranian-backed groups could use southern Syria as a launchpad for future escalation. The Israeli military has conducted dozens of airstrikes across Syria in recent months, targeting what it describes as sensitive weapons depots, command centers, and supply routes for Hezbollah. Each of these strikes deepens the urgency on both sides of defining clear security parameters. That urgency is what makes the Doha Forum speech matter. The region is entering a period where long-standing understandings are under review. Borders are tested more frequently, ceasefires are more fragile, and security frameworks once taken for granted are being questioned. Al-Sharaa's warning that altering the 1974 agreement could trigger unknown consequences is not merely theoretical. It reflects the recognition that, in today's environment, a single miscalculation in southern Syria could ignite a broader confrontation involving regional and international actors. As the conference continues and delegates debate the future of Middle Eastern security, al-Sharaa's words linger in the air, part caution, part assertion, part plea. His message distills an uncomfortable truth. In a region already bracing for the next crisis, dismantling the few mechanisms that have endured may not be an act of reform, but a step into uncertainty. For Syria, already fractured and navigating a delicate path toward political recovery, the stakes of that uncertainty are existential. Israel's concerns, Syria's sovereignty, Iran's influence, and Washington's strategic calculations collide in a narrow corridor of land along the Golan frontier. And now, in a hall in Doha, the interim Syrian president has placed the world on notice. A demilitarized southern Syria, he argues, is not a path to peace, but a doorway to instability, one whose consequences no one can yet predict. Through this lens, his warning becomes not just a statement of national policy, but a regional challenge. Stability cannot be built by stripping states of their ability to defend themselves, and agreements that have endured for generations should be strengthened, not discarded. Whether the international community heeds that warning will shape the next chapter of the Syrian conflict and perhaps the wider Middle East in ways that are only beginning to come into view.